Please welcome Dr. Andrew Cameron.
Well, I'd like to thank Trevor and the board of the college for inviting me to contribute to our lecture series. I've been looking forward to it greatly. I'm very much looking forward to hearing John Anderson and Kevin Rudd's contribution as people who've lived what we'll be talking about. And I've certainly enjoyed my own preparation for these lectures, which I found very stimulating. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun here in the next 2 evenings, because I think there'll be a pretty big range of people here tonight. You may be terrified and disgusted by the so-called rise of the religious right in Australia. You want to reclaim Australia for secular liberalism. Or you may be terrified. There'll be a pretty big range of people here tonight. You may be terrified and disgusted by the so-called rise of the religious right in Australia. You want to reclaim Australia for secular liberalism. Or you may be terrified and disgusted by the so-called decline and moral rot in Australia, and you want to reclaim Australia for the Lord Jesus. The hostility of both you groups to each other really typifies, I think, Manning Clark's depiction of Australia as an ongoing fight between Christianity and the Enlightenment. But there is also a much larger group here tonight. You are just terrified by how helpless you feel when this topic comes up, and you don't have anything to reclaim because you haven't got a clue what to think in the first place. You probably nod vigorously when you hear the phrase separation of church and state, yet you break into a sweat when any one of a number of questions arises. Should an office bearer of the state exhibit religious faith and or allow it to influence their actions at all? Can a church criticise government policies, or should it just shut up and get on with the job of helping people? When should the state ever legislate over the church's life? When may it assist the church's goals? Should religious leaders ever hold office in the state? We might recall some controversies from over the past 5 years, such as Archbishop Peter Jensen's comment that the Prime Minister was out of step with God, Catholic Tony Abbott's horror at Australia's high abortion rate, the Prime Minister's appointment of an Anglican Archbishop to Governor-General, the Prime Minister's appointment of an Evangelical Anglican as head of the Fair Pay Commission, a New South Wales private members bill opposing church employment policies, the then Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson's call for Australians to examine their relationship with God, Alexander Downer's attack on an Anglican primate's comments on Iraq and Bali as being inappropriate, and Kevin Andrews' rebuff to church leaders who question industrial relations reforms. I won't pretend that we can solve all this tonight and tomorrow. We are cracking open the door on a roaring, cacophonous debate spanning every continent over many centuries. Don't imagine that the recent Australian discussion is due to some new and un-Australian rise of the religious right. Rather, to be a member of a Western nation since the time of Christ has been to navigate some very rugged terrain. Few themes, says J.S. Gregory, have been more constant in European history than that of church and state. The problem of defining the relation between these two powerful but diverse social institutions is one which, though often below the surface of things, has always been liable to recur, and in recurring, to arouse long and bitter dispute.